Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 961, November the 18th, 2019, Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, we got a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so over the weekend, as you might expect, the testimony of Tim Morrison was released. Now, keep in mind, Tim Morrison is the senior director at the NSC. He would have been Vindman's boss, and all these other ambassadors and others would fall under him. He would be the senior most person. And why did they release his testimony over the weekend? Because they're hoping that you didn't read it. But if you had read it, what you would find out is that Tim Morrison's testimony destroys Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's testimony, and it blows up the Ukrainian hoax altogether. Morrison was on the Trump-Zelensky call. He actually was on the call, actually heard the call. And he says he does not believe anything improper occurred on the call. Now, as I said, Morrison is Vindman's boss. And Morrison says that he kept Vindman out of the loop on many matters because he did not trust Vindman's judgment. Now, he also says the reason that he didn't trust Vindman's judgment was not just his own opinion, but other people around him at the NSC were telling him, hey, Vindman's kind of on the fringe over here. I wouldn't take too much of what he says too seriously. So it wasn't just Morrison who had a skepticism of the things that would come from Vindman. It was other people at the NSC working around him. So Morrison, for that reason, would oftentimes keep Vindman out of the loop. He says that Trump generally, this is Morrison in his statement, says that Trump generally does not like foreign aid and specifically had concerns that the U.S. aid in Ukraine might be misused due to the previous known corruption. Well, there you have it. The top guy at the NSC, of all these people that have been coming in and testifying, this would have been the top guy. And he's telling you right here, based on this, the hearing should be canceled, the whole thing should be flushed, and it should all be over. But, of course, this is why they released this over the weekend. And after, now, I don't know why. I saw a couple segments of Chris Ratboy Wallace on Fox, and apparently he didn't read this. Now, he should have, unless he actually did his show prep prior to this coming out, because this was out by Sunday morning. But none of this was brought up by Chris Wallace. So I can only assume that Chris Wallace either A, purposely ignored it, which wouldn't surprise me, because he is a hardcore anti-Trumper, and of course, we know his father was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. And Chrissy doesn't fall too far behind. Chris Ratboy Wallace. So this was released on Saturday. I believe it was Saturday that this came out. So maybe Wallace had already done his show. He'd already, the producers and everybody, they'd already booked the guests, written the questions, had their narratives, had their talking points. And so anything that happened after that maybe didn't make it into the show. But because this is such a major revelation, this is something that he should have paid attention to, and he should have made whatever changes he needed to make, because that show was done live, and he's talking to I think it was Steve Scalise, I think it was Steve Scalise. I think it was Steve Scalise that he was talking to on Sunday morning. So he certainly had this information, and I think Scalise actually did bring this up. But Chris Wallace, the Ratboy Wallace, blew right on by it as if it mattered not at all, when in fact it is the single most important testimony that has come out of all of these hearings. This is it. The top guy, the director at the NSC, the senior director at the NSC, he's over all these people, and he just told you what he thought. And he just also told you that Vindman is a bit of a whack job, and that most of the people around them at the NSC think Vindman is a whack job. That's how he got on Schiff's committee, because all these people were in Schiff's hearings. All these people were hearing from Yovanovitch, Vindeman, all these people. They're a little bit wacky, haven't you noticed? It's a complete hoax. Unbelievable. We had John Ratcliffe telling Maria Bartiromo that the bug-eyed fool will not release the transcript. And he's talking about the transcript of the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community's transcript that blows up his case against Trump. So apparently there's another piece of information that none of us have even seen that would further blow it up. If the previous statement by Mr. Morrison did not, then this certainly would as well. And Ratcliffe says that this would totally blow up Schiff's case against Trump. And he says the transcript lays out the relationship between Schiff and the whistleblower. In other words, the ICIG report that Schiff won't come off of tells us about the relationship between the whistleblower and Schiff's staff and how that all went about. And of course, we already know that the so-called fake whistleblower went to the Schiff committee before he went to anyone else. And so this is what, and of course we're talking about Sharamella. So this is what Ratcliffe is saying. So we have Tim Morrison, the head guy at the NSC, blowing it all up. And here we have Ratcliffe saying that if we ever get a look at the ICIG report, we will see that it points out the problems with the fake whistleblower and his activities prior to filing his complaint with the Schiff staff, which makes it look an awful lot like this was a Schiff operation. And that's why he won't release it. Well, we're getting more and more information about the dealings of Victoria F. the EU Nuland, and I think it's high time that she face some questions. Now, I would assume that she is going to be interviewed certainly by Durham. I assume that we're going to find where she was interviewed by the IG. I think Horowitz would have interviewed her. I'm not so sure. We won't know until we see the Horowitz report how much of that Ukraine stuff that he looked at. But in the event that he didn't look at anything involving Ukraine, which is possible, certainly Durham would, because that's kind of where the origins of it are. And Victoria F. the EU Nuland would have been a major player. But we know that Victoria F. the EU Nuland lied to reporters and got caught using Obama's talking points on Benghazi. So she was caught lying on the Benghazi thing. In 2014, she was caught on tape saying F the EU as she and Jeffrey Pyatt were working on the strategy to pull off the coup in Ukraine. And that's, of course, why we call her Victoria F. the EU Nuland. She met with Obama at the White House in 2015, along with Biden, discussing the events going on in Ukraine. She met with Pyatt and Avril Haines, who was a NSA or NSC CIA guy. They met at the White House on November 5th of 2015. She met with Biden at the White House on March 30th, 2016. She met with Obama on April 4th of 2016 at the White House. She met with Susan Rice on April 13th of 2016 at the White House. And of course, she worked with Christopher Steele and Jonathan Weiner to move the Steele dossier over to John F. Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam. And then, of course, Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam, gave it over to the FBI. So clearly we can see that Victoria F. the EU Nuland is up to her eyeballs in all things Ukraine. And we have to assume that that would include both things, the way that they were using Ukraine, working with corrupt Ukrainian officials to target Trump and people around Trump, specifically Manafort, to try to create the Russia-Trump collusion hoax coming out of Ukraine in late 2016. And then, of course, the activities of corrupt Democrats, Biden, Kerry, and probably others. We know Pelosi's son has some interest in an energy company in Ukraine. So there's a lot of Democrats that are up to their eyeballs in a lot of things that are corrupt in Ukraine. And Victoria F. the EU Newland has about a 2.5, 3-year history through this crucial period where she's routinely talking to key players at the White House, including Obama, Biden, Rice, and others. We definitely need to. She definitely needs to come clean. Well, a lot of people are kind of disappointed. We lost that Louisiana governor's race. John Bel Edwards was, of course, reelected in that election. It was very close. I think it was separated by about, 2 percentage points. So a lot of people are kind of depressed about that. But, and I'm not happy about it. I mean, I would like to have won that race. But quite honestly, Risponi was down 22 points just a month ago. Trump went there 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and he managed to close the gap significantly. Risponi was down 22 points, and he only lost by 2. So Trump brought his numbers way up and almost brought the victory, but came up a little bit short. But certainly as far down as Risponi was, Trump was able to at least ways make it close at the very end. Now, when you're talking about John Bel Edwards in the state of Louisiana, keep in mind, Bel Edwards is not your typical left-wing crazy Democrat, not by a long shot. He's a fairly conservative Democrat. If you look at a lot of the top-tier issues of the wacko left, John Bel Edwards is opposed to all of them. He's campaigned in his re-election, opposed the impeachment and impeachment hearings. He is opposed to the New Green Deal. He is not a gun grabber. He is not for open borders. He's not for unlimited immigration. He's not for sanctuary cities. He isn't a big taxer. He's a fairly conservative or moderate type Democrat. And if you look at the map, how he won in that close race, you will see that he won the way a lot of these governors win. Democrats win in these types of states, where if you look at the map, again, it's mostly red in Louisiana. Trump won Louisiana by over 20 points, and he's going to win it in 2020 by at least that many again. And the majority of seats in Louisiana are Republican seats, and they have Republican senator. So, and you also have to remember that Bel Edwards' approval rating during the contest was right around a little even over 50%. So he had pretty good approval ratings. He's a pretty popular governor. He's a fairly what you'd say conservative or sort of an old blue dog type Democrat. He's nothing like had he been running on a far left platform, he would have been defeated easily. But he's not. So that's why he won. But again, looking at that state, it's like a lot of other ones. It's mostly red districts in Louisiana. But you have those large urban areas, which are blue. And you have 4 or 5 large urban areas in Louisiana, which are blue. And that's where most of the population is. And then you have the more rural areas and stuff like that. They're all red. And this is true across the country. Democrats win the big cities, the urban areas, and Republicans win, in the suburbs, and they win out in the more open areas. So, yes, it's disappointing, but when you actually analyze and look at the race, I don't read a lot into it as far as how it will matter in 2020. Now, had Trump been on the ballot, it might have been different, but still, closing that race from being down 22 points to only losing by a little over 2, it's a pretty good showing. So I'm not too concerned about it, but that's how it turned out. Got to keep digging. Well, we now have a report from the Washington Post that Vindeman may have met with Sharamella before filing his complaint. Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman, may have met with Sharamella before filing his complaint. Well, if that's true, then he lied in his testimony. And apparently, Schiff knows this, and he has withheld it from Republicans on the House Intel Committee. Well, maybe they should call him back and ask him some questions. Now, as you know, I'm into the Lee Smith book, and I'm going to be talking about some things as I go through the book. Any new information, we may cover some older information if it's pertinent, but mostly new information. And so I'm going to talk a little bit now about Chapter 2, which is called Enemies of the State. And Chapter 2 primarily focuses on the sort of background of Stefan Halper, the Fat Man, and focuses mostly on his first target, which was Michael Flynn, and how that whole setup came about. So let me go through that with you. There'll be a few other facts here from that chapter that don't pertain to that, but we will get to it shortly. The first thing, as I said, the main thing in this chapter is a focus on the setup of Flynn by the Fat Man, Stefan Halper. But we also learn early on in this chapter that Glenn Simpson, Christopher Steele, and Bruce Orr have known each other for years, and that they were speaking together, talking about Trump and Russia as early as January 2016. Simpson met Christopher Steele in 2009. Steele met Bruce Orr in 2007. Simpson met Bruce Orr in 2010. So yes, these guys go back a long way, 8, 9, 10 years. And they were talking about Trump-Russia as early as January of 2016. Now, let's move on to some of the Flynn-related material in the chapter. So after Michael Flynn resigned from the Obama administration as the DIA head, the Defense Intelligence Agency head, that was in April of 2014. After he resigned in April 2014, he began talking publicly about his opposition to Obama, the Obama administration foreign policy specifically. Flynn also had privately told friends that he saw the Clintons and their corruption as a threat to the Republic. Flynn was willing to talk to anyone if it would keep the rotten Reverend Clinton out of the White House. And of course, this was being picked up and passed along to people in the Obama administration who already knew Flynn's opinion. That's why they forced him out. And of course, it was making its way through to the rotten Reverend Clinton. Now in 2014, in February of 2014, while he was still, this is 2 months before he left the Obama administration, in 2014, Richard Dearlove, who's the former director of MI6, hosted a dinner in honor of Flynn in the UK. Christopher Andrew, who is an intel historian for the UK, and Svetlana Lakova were at that dinner. The dinner, of course, was to honor Flynn and to celebrate a recent contract that Flynn, while he was DIA, had signed with this group called CSI, the Cambridge Security Initiative. And essentially they're researchers, academics and researchers. And the three heads of this company, CSI, were Dearlove, Christopher Andrew, and Stefan Halper. Halper was not at the 2014 dinner, but Andrew had asked Lakova to stay in touch with Michael Flynn. Now, Halper, his father-in-law, of course, was Ray Klein, the former CIA head. And, of course, Halper is CIA. Halper is best known for his work that he did on the Reagan's 1980 campaign when he targeted Jimmy Carter. Now, Halper was hired at that time by David Gergen, who is now a CNN analyst and anti-Trumper. Halper was friends with the former Russian intel chief Vyacheslav Trubnikov, and later Trubnikov would be one of the Russians Steele would tell Kathleen Kvalik was one of his sources for the dossier. Where do you think Steele was getting that information? Probably from his buddy Halper. So Halper had guested Trubnikov at Cambridge 2 times, once in 2012 and once in 2015. Now, 2 years after that dinner that Flynn attended with Dearlove, Andrew, and Lakova, Halper was tasked, and we're not sure by who, but Halper was tasked with digging into Flynn. It was at that time that Halper discovered the picture of Flynn at the RT dinner sitting next to Putin, and Halper began putting together a narrative around the picture to tie Flynn to Russia. So Halper then contacts Christopher Andrew, and just a few weeks after the RT dinner, which was December 10th of 2015, and Halper asked Andrews to host another dinner and to invite Lakova. Now, Halper made this request in January of 2016, just a couple weeks after the dinner. Lakova declined because she didn't like Halper and knew all about him and knew probably that he was up to something. So she declined. She never went to the dinner. But that did not stop Halper from creating a false narrative that Flynn may be compromised and that he may be having an affair with an alleged Russian asset, Lakova. On February the 26th of 2016, Halper would give the phony story to Reuters reporters Mark Hassenball and Steve Holland, who would write the story and begin the frame-up of Flynn by Halper, the fat man. Now, Halper was paid $600,000 for 2 contracts in 2016 and in 2015. And he was paid from the Office of Net Assessment, which of course is located within the Pentagon. The money was for research on Russia, but a DoD official told Lee Smith that Halper's reports were substandard. They were not written by Halper. They were rather subcontracted to low-level, unnamed researchers and think tankers. Many sources Halper claimed later, many sources that Halper used or claimed to use would later deny having any impact or having done any work for Halper on Halper's essays. Halper, keep in mind, at the same time that he's being paid by the OAN this large amount of money, $600,000, he was also being paid by the DIA for his CSI contract, along with Andrews and Dearlove. Halper was also publishing books using the material he was getting from his CSI and ONA contracts and making money from this too. Triple dipping is what he was doing in this situation to cash in. Halper was making bank while he was setting up people within the Trump campaign. And as you read more and more, there's a lot more on Halper in this chapter. And I will tell you this, if what is in Lee Smith's book about Halper becomes public as a result of the Durham investigation or any other investigation, people are going to be calling for Halper's head on a stick, on a pike, because this is one nasty son of a bitch. And what he does with American taxpayer dollars, framing a president, people around the president using American taxpayer dollars, all these other things that he's involved in. He writes crummy reports. He doesn't even write them. Clearly, he is a CIA asset. His position over at this Office of Net Assessment is simply a cover. It is simply a cover. He's full CIA all the way, and he is one dirty, dirty rat. Now, let's get to Dumbass of the Week. Well, we have IC reporting going with Adam Shifty. We have Ed Lauder. He's going to go with Representative Quigley. Now, Quigley is the idiot who said that hearsay evidence can be a lot better, actually, than direct evidence, direct testimony, first-hand testimony. No one in their right mind would make a statement like that. No one in their right mind would make a statement like that. So his name is Quigley. So yes, you're right, Ed. Quigley should definitely be considered Dumbass of the Week, and many of you did. Walker on the Hill is going to go with The Bug-Eyed Fool. Oregon is going to go with GooTube. Yes, GooTube. By the way, if I get kicked off of, if my channel gets closed down on December the 10th by YouTube or GooTube, look for me over on BitChute. It may take a couple of days for me to get set up over there, but give it a couple of days and come over and you will find me there. And we shall continue the journey. There's some other people that asked me about getting in some other, putting my videos up in some other formats. I'll have to look into that. The two that were offered to me, I'm not familiar with. I am familiar with BitChute. Cards is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Dennis Waddell is going to go with YouTube Management. Larry Lyons is going to go with YouTube Management, or YouTube. Fern, she's going to go with Myles Garrett. Yes, Myles Garrett. Well, in case you don't know, kind of getting into some sports here, Myles Garrett is the Cleveland Browns player that kind of ripped the helmet off of the Pittsburgh Steelers backup quarterback and smacked him over the head with it. Now, a lot of people say he deserved it because he started it, but whether he started it and deserved it or not, I don't know. But I don't know what was said. But regardless, no matter what is said, they can call your mother every name in the book. But in the NFL, when you take off another player's helmet and smack him over the head with it, especially a quarterback, you're probably looking at something close to a lifetime ban and a lot of fines. That was purely a dumbass of the week move. You've got to control your emotions in the NFL. And he clearly did not. T.W. Wintex, going to go with Hillary and Obama. Ricky Ricardo is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. MCMM McDo is going to go with Schiff, Quigley, another person for Quigley, and Madam Botox. Jonathan Cassidy is going to go with Schiff, the Rotten Reverend Clinton, and Mr. Potato Head. Gene is going to go with Schiff, the Bug-Eyed Fool, along with the 3 hearsay witnesses. Yes, indeed. And Chris Wallace. Yes, Chris Ratboy Wallace. Obviously, Gene saw the same thing I saw. Lori Holt is going to go with the Schiff Circus, along with Quigley and the Rotten Reverend. Jeanette Bateman is going to go with Schiff, the Madam Botox, and the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Sane Environmentalist is going with the entire Democratic Party, pretty much, and the Bug-Eyed Fool, along with the lamestream media. Joey D is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Yovanovitch, and Deval Patrick. Susan Lowell is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Jamie Anziviano is going to go with Schiff and the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Gary Peters is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Jenny Tweets, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and Madam Botox. Deep State Soup Sandwich is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool and his gavel. Sherman Lynn. Sherman Lynn's going to go with Schiff and Yovanovitch. Well done, Peter. Well done, Sherman. I'm sorry. Sherman. Well done, Sherman Lynn. Schiff and Yovanovitch. 2 solid choices. Peter James. Peter James is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Nancy Pelosi, and the Rhinos. Absolutely. Freddie Schaffer is going to go with the reporters who gaggle outside the White House. Yeah, they are definitely dumbasses of the week every week. I love those Trump pressers he does outside the White House with the press corps. I mean, that's fantastic. He doesn't let them in the nice, cooled or heated room inside the White House anymore. He makes them stand out in the heat or the cold and suffer out there. And then he just abuses them before he gets on his helicopter. Loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. Let's see. So very well done, Freddie. Youngblood is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Stage Door Johnny is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Madam Botox, and Yovanovitch. Whimsical Fancies is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, George Kent, and Amy Berman Jackson. Yes, Amy Berman Jackson. Can't stand that woman. What she did to Roger Stone is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. From beginning to end, that whole trial was just absolutely rigged against Stone. And I really hope that Trump pardons Roger Stone. Jack Kennedy is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Amy Berman Jackson, and YouTube. Sue Sung is going to go with Yovanovitch, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and Jeff Sessions. Greg Woolery, he's going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Madam Botox, and Quigley. Larry Rydell, he's going to go with Ronna McDaniel. Yeah, Larry's not very happy about that loss down there in Louisiana. I can certainly appreciate that. I was definitely hoping to win that seat, but as I mentioned, we were going up against a pretty well-established incumbent who's not indicative of the rest of the Democratic Party. He's just to the center You couldn't really run against him as a far leftist or whatever. And let's face it, Rasponi was a businessman, never been in politics, was down 20 points. It was a tough deal. And the fact that it ended up close as it was is probably the best we can take from that. But I understand why Larry would be putting that on Ronna McDaniel. Hopefully she does better in the future, because that is 2 races, Kentucky and Louisiana, that we lost. And yeah, there needs to be some work done somewhere. American Pie is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Mike G is going to go with Quigley, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and the 3 Stooge Witnesses. Meredith Mueller is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. And the 50% of the people who believe in the crap, I guess you could call it, the crap. Whether it's Trump-Russia, whether it's obstruction, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's this latest hoax, doesn't matter what it is, there's always that half of the people who listen to this crap. And yes, they are dumbasses to buy into any of this bullshit, which is all that it is. It will be proven to be, just like the Mueller and everything else, it's going to go down the tube, will be proven as bullshit. Thank you very much, Meredith. Oh, she also wants to go with American Media as her 3rd choice. Yes, American Media sucks. It's fake news. Hopefully the media is better wherever you are, Meredith. Well, we have Ian the Fat. I don't think I can say that word. I guess I can. Ian the Fat FXXK. Ian's going to go with Schiff, the Bug-Eyed Fool. Maura, the lovely and talented Maura, is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. And Quigley, Hey is going to go with Amy Berman Jackson. Yes, indeed. Babs is going to go with Schiff, the Bug-Eyed Fool. Tiana is going to go with Schiff, the Bug-Eyed Fool, along with Meghan McCain's tweets. Yes, and that comment about rot in hell to Roger Stone is totally uncalled for. I can't stand Meghan McCain and Meghan McGoo, and I certainly hope that after Durham finishes his investigation, that there is a truth bomb in his report exposing that fraud, the late Senator Magoo, who was part of the coup plot in a big way. Gordon is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Adam Schiff. Now, let's tally him up. Well, I guess just from reading through that, you could probably tell that once again, for the 2nd week in a row, the Bug-Eyed Fool, Adam Schiff, is going to win by just an incredible margin. The last 2 weeks, his margin of victory has been larger than any I can remember in a Dumbass of the Week contest. I mean, he's winning these last week and this week. He's winning by such a gigantic... He literally got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. He got 32 votes for Dumbass of the Week. Almost everyone, most of the people who made a pick for Dumbass of the Week put him in one of their 3 choices. I mean, he just blew the field away. To give you an idea, he had 32 votes. The next closest finisher to him had 7. And that would be 8. The next one closest competitor to him, coming in 2nd place in Dumbass of the Week, would be Madam Botox. Madam Botox. And we have a tie for 3rd place. And the tie for 3rd place would be between Quigley and the Rotten Reverend. So there you have it. Schiff blowing away the field for the 2nd week in a row is the Dumbass of the Week. Pelosi, a distant 2nd, and right on her heels, Quigley and the Rotten Reverend Clinton tying for 3rd. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good day. See you. Bye.